obviously the big to do with you was that you were in the middle, pivotal, of course, swing vote position, worked in Survivor, tougher in the challenge between the veterans and the Survivor Alliance. I'm super intrigued because you came into this season with this concept that there were going to be CBS alum, there were going to be MTV alumni. So, did you expect you would be in this place once those vets came in on those jet skis that you would be so firmly in the middle for so long?
Yes, I knew it was going to be tough for me to balance because I have relationships with, not even just like Fessy and Josh, I have relationships with. They're technically big brother. I have played with Tori and Bananas and I have relationships with them. But there's like limits and like levels to all of it. Like I was playing with some of the vets, but not all of them. I was playing with some of the survivors closer than with others. So like I just had my own, I was playing the middle. Yes, I knew I was going to be stuck in the middle. I knew, and I just was trying to figure out how long I could be in the middle of the road. And I was honestly impressed by how long I was able to navigate it because it kept kind of working out in my favor. I was like, oh well, I could throw a big brother person in here. And yeah, I'm surprised it didn't all fall apart earlier, to be honest with you.
Well, you talk about different levels of relationships with the vets. Starts off in a not so good place between Janae being that sort of turncoat that helps you get sent in. You come out, you start rehashing things with Amanda again. So, talk to me about those first few days and, in particular, your dynamics from those sides of the vets.
It was definitely interesting. I actually thought that I had met up with John A prior to the season. We had done an event together. So I
Mm.
thought we were in a good place. I was surprised when I had gotten 3 balls. And then I was like, well, blessed that you voted me because at least it gives me a target to put my attention on and towards for these upcoming, weeks. For me, it was like, okay, great. I have this thing to hide behind that me and Amanda got into a feud. So now every single time, I don't really have to expose my cards. I could just be like, I'm voting Amanda. It's always going to be Amanda for me. So I could just look like blind hate was fueling me or John A or whatever it was. So like, I, it made my life a little bit easier that they went against me, to be
Mm.
honest. And we see in progression, every single person who voted for me, John A, Lewis, Amanda, all go home in a row, and I don't get a ball after that. So like I thank you guys and thank you, Amanda, for giving me airtime because your vendetta against me is unwarranted, and at, at least we got some tea and drama from it.
I mean, 100%. I mean, you talk about Lewis. I want to bring in this like secret garden aspect because speaking towards the survivor side of things, it seemed like you were working with that inner circle of survivor women in Chanel and Michaela and Desi. And then it all comes to a head during that like head to head in that red team meeting where Josh says, I'm going to force a deadlock. And then you end up, sticking you try to stick with the secret garden, but when it's clear that Desi's going in, you're like, I'm going to throw my vote behind Lewis because Lewis voted for me. This will obviously not be the last time that you kind of have to do some damage control afterwards. So, talk to me about your role within that sort of hierarchy and then how you were able to recover from that moment.
So I knew what isn't shown is that I actually have a pretty close relationship with Wes in the game. I'm friends with
Mm.
his wife outside of the game. So
Oh.
I knew that I was never going to be able to vote Wes in that elimination or that nomination. So for me, um, it, Dusty throwing his vote like that really put me in a bit of a pickle because I was hoping that Dusty would not do that. And then I could just be like, oh, my hands are tied, like, but I really had to expose myself for voting Lewis because Dusty threw his vote. So people were mad at me. I definitely had some backlash. But the thing is that like I also knew secret things that people in the secret garden were doing, where their votes lied. And so, if people like people were like, why'd you vote for West? And I could be like, well, Chanel, look at the things that you did in your secret vote. So like, there was a layer of like we all had some like inside tea on each other. And it was like, well, you can't be too mad because here's what you did too, So we all we were all playing together, but we were all playing for our interests as well, and that was apparent in the beginning of the game.
Now, on that note, let's start getting into the series of unfortunate events that led to you speaking to me today, throneless. I mean, when it came down to, as you said, you being able to stay so hidden under the radar for so long, and then your hands finally forced. Okay, you have to vote with the vets or you have to vote with Survivor in the last episode. And you chose the vets. Obviously, looking back, they're going to get immediate revenge on it. But talk to me about the logic that went through your head with that decision.
The only regret, I don't really regret doing that personally, because for me, Chris was the only buddy. He had said my name. I had been working with Chris and he threw me under the bus. He had been playing really messy and sloppy. And so for me, he's the only person who really wronged me. Um,
Hmm.
so voting for him, I felt, first off, it it eliminated this guy, all the guys that I had been working with the whole game, like Fessy, Josh, Bananas, whatever. They all wanted it to be Chris. I felt like I was doing them a solid. I also felt like by voting in Tori, who had had my back, I was fucking over Tori. I was fucking over Cass. I felt like I was just throwing Cass to the wolves. I felt like Cass would probably have to go home. So that didn't benefit me. Why would I want somebody like Cassidy to go home and keep all these strong women in? So I felt like I was doing a lot of the right things. It only really screwed over Secret Garden and Chris. I wish I had just told Chanel and Desi. I think that that's where I went wrong. If I had told them that I was voting for Chris, I honestly think they would have voted for Chris too. So
Hmm.
I wish I had just been transparent about the move rather than doing it in secret. That's my
Yeah.
only regret.
Well, one of the pieces of the fallout of that is, of course, the Michelle down, as it were, this confrontation with Michaela. Talk to me about where that came from and your perspective behind everything that went down with that kerfuffle.
That was a long fight. It was like 45 minutes. And it's funny because I talked to Bananas about it after, and he's like, I have done how many seasons of this, and I've never seen a fight like that. He's like, because usually people go around in circles when they fight, right? Like you rehash the same things over and over and you say it louder or you say it in a different way. But like that fight was, we've known each other we played 2 seasons together, and it was built up. The tension had been built up. We had a lot of tea on each other. There was a lot of pent up drama between us. And so it was just like, Jakey, come here. So it was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of like one thing would get thrown in and then another and then another and then another. It was 45 minutes of it just like exploding. And I love Michaela, but we are just very, very different players and we're very different people. And she plays very logical and I play very emotional. And, we had been trying to play together the whole game, but we communicate very differently. We respect different styles of gameplay and communication differently. And so it had just gotten to that point. And I was like, how you want to throw me under the bus? Well, here's all the shit that I think that you did. You were trying to throw Tori in. And by throwing Tori in, you were going to throw Chanel or Desi against her. Like, how's that shady? How's that not shady? But the shit I do shady. It was kind of like, you want to call me sneaky and snaky. Well, that's sneaky and snaky too. Like, I think it was just sort of like, you want to expose me and make me the villain. Like, I'm a mess, but I'm not a villain. And that's what I was trying to say is it's like, don't villainize me in this moment because you do the same shit. And you made a
Hmm.
deal with Tori too. And like, like I just felt like it's kind of easy when somebody is down and out the way I was down and out to just pile on and just like make it like Michelle's the worst. And it's like, we're all doing that. We all
Hmm.
did that. So don't paint me like I'm the worst when you're doing the same thing, honey.
Yeah. Last thing I want to ask as we talk about unseen moments, of course, you're no stranger to the challenge edit, but I'm super curious from your own personal journey. If you could pick one thing from your time in the challenge that you wish we could have seen, could have been like a funny moment, could have been a strategic moment, could have been a badass moment, what would you pick?
um, there was like a big, big fight that happened between Josh and Fessy, and I think Bananas might have been there too, that like was in the previews, but was never shown. And it was like a drunken fight. I think that so Fessy was rapping and he said to Josh, You think you're Bad Bunny, but you're really a sour gummy. And he was just really, really drunk. And it escalated into like this massive fight. And like chairs got thrown, tables got flipped, and it wasn't shown. And we all were like waiting for it to get shown, and it wasn't. And yeah, it was sad that it didn't.
I don't know. Maybe Bad Bunny sued for like libel or slander.
Exactly. Exactly. Maybe they couldn't use that or something. There was licensing on that. I don't know.
Well, listen, much like you said to Amanda, you made good TV, Michelle, no matter what. And the good news is, like, people are missing out on your opportunity at the big money. You get one in a couple weeks again. So that's nice that we're only going to get like a brief hiatus before Michelle Fitzgerald's on our screen once again.
Yeah, I would not expect a lot of growth in the two. I mean, listen, I had 2 weeks between filming. This was a really intense season for me, so I go into 39 a bit frayed at the edges anyways. So yeah, I wouldn't say I learned a lot between the two. So expect more meltdowns, more fights, more hookups, more drama. There's not a lot of change in me.
This time there'll be 90-minute fights instead of 45-minute fights. You're doubling the length.